Jackson had been dreaming about this day for as long as he could remember. Finally, after many months of anticipation and tireless saving, he held in his hands the box of his brand new gaming console. The sleek packaging, accented with futuristic designs and bold lettering, promised an entirely new world of entertainment and adventure. As he sat in his modest living room, walls adorned with posters of classic games and a comfortable recliner positioned perfectly for gaming, he felt a surge of excitement that seemed to light up every corner of the space. With great care, Jackson slid the top of the box open. The crisp sound of the sealed plastic and the faint aroma of new electronics set his heart racing. Each component was meticulously arranged inside: the main console, a wireless controller with an ergonomic design, a set of cables, and an instruction manual neatly tucked away. The anticipation built up inside him as he slowly removed the items, one by one, from the packaging. Every piece of plastic and every molded plastic part was a promise of countless hours of immersive play. He couldn't help but feel a deep sense of accomplishment. Jackson recalled the long struggle he had faced to secure this prized possession: early mornings, late nights, and even sacrificing some of his favorite snacks. Today was not just about owning a gaming console, it was about winning a hard-fought battle against challenges and setbacks. With every item he revealed, he felt the excitement bubbling inside him, and the room seemed to hum with the sound of his anticipation. As he set up the console, Jackson marveled at the design and innovation behind it. The system's features were beyond anything he had ever experienced, and he took a moment to appreciate the engineering that went into creating such a device. He connected the cables, adjusted the settings on the screen, and read through the Quick Start Guide, which was filled with colorful illustrations and clear instructions. It wasn't just a gadget, it was a portal to an entirely new universe of gaming. In that peaceful moment, as Jackson powered up the console and watched the vibrant startup animation light up his television screen, he knew that this was the beginning of a new chapter. His living room transformed into a battleground, a place where he could immerse himself in epic quests, strategic battles, and unforgettable adventures. The excitement was palpable, and every detail, from the crisp graphics on the screen to the responsive feel of the controller in his hands, validated all the effort he had invested. Jackson leaned back in his chair with a satisfied smile, reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. The new gaming console was more than a mere machine, it was a symbol of his persistence, determination, and the joy of finally achieving a long-awaited goal. Today, in that simple yet transformative moment, Jackson embraced the thrill of victory and the limitless possibilities that awaited him in the digital realm. Just as Jackson was beginning to lose himself in the wonders of his new gaming console, a sharp knock at the door startled him. He paused his game, the screen flickering in the background, and walked over to the door with a mix of curiosity and cautious excitement. Opening the door, he was met with the sight of a determined woman standing on his doorstep. This woman, Miranda Clark, carried an air of urgency about her, and her eyes, filled with a mix of determination and anxiety, immediately captured Jackson's attention. Miranda introduced herself in a brisk yet polite manner, explaining that she was there for an important reason. Clutching a small envelope in one hand, she made it clear that her visit was not casual at all. With her posture rigid and her tone firm, Miranda informed Jackson that she needed him to surrender his newly acquired gaming console. According to her, the console was intended to be the perfect birthday gift for her young son, Tyler. Miranda's voice trembled slightly as she explained the significance of the gift, a symbol of joy for Tyler's special day that she had meticulously planned for weeks. The unexpected request left Jackson taken aback. Here he was, still riding high on the thrill of his accomplishment, now confronted by a stranger whose determination was palpable. Miranda's insistence left little room for negotiation. She explained that Tyler had been eagerly anticipating the gift, and any delay could ruin his birthday celebration. Jackson, who had poured his heart into finally acquiring the gaming console, felt a deep sense of conflict. On one hand, he cherished his victory and the hard work it represented. On the other, he couldn't ignore the urgency in Miranda's eyes, which suggested that her request was born out of genuine need. Miranda continued, her tone softening ever so slightly as she recounted the lengths she had gone to for Tyler's sake. She mentioned that Tyler had been dreaming of experiencing the new gaming console, having seen his friends enjoy its many features. Every detail of her story was delivered with an earnestness that resonated with Jackson, stirring within him a profound internal debate. Was it fair for him to hold on to something that could bring joy to another, even if it was not rightfully his? The weight of the request pressed on him, and the room seemed to shrink as the importance of the moment grew. In that moment, Jackson realized that the situation was far more complex than he had initially thought. Miranda's words painted a picture of a devoted parent determined to make her child's birthday unforgettable. Her request wasn't just about the gaming console, it was about hope, dreams, and the desire to create lasting memories for Tyler. The unexpected visitor had brought with her a wave of emotion that challenged Jackson's sense of ownership and personal achievement. After a long pause, Jackson invited Miranda inside to discuss the matter further in a quieter setting. As they settled in his living room, surrounded by the remnants of his earlier excitement, both individuals found themselves caught in an unexpected dialogue about responsibility, sacrifice, and the unforeseen demands that life sometimes presents. Although Jackson was initially reluctant, he couldn't help but feel empathy for Miranda's situation. The encounter was not merely a disruption, it was a test of his values and his willingness to share in someone else's joy. In that moment of hesitation, Jackson's heart and mind wrestled with the ethics of keeping his prized possession versus the heartfelt plea of a mother determined to brighten her son's birthday. The tension in the room was almost tangible, setting the stage for a confrontation that would challenge both his resolve and his compassion. Miranda's face was flushed with anger as she stormed into the living room where Jackson was seated, casually flipping through his phone. The air between them was thick with tension, her every step charged with frustration. She had been simmering for hours, and now it was time to confront Jackson. "You're being selfish," Miranda's voice broke the silence, sharp and accusing. Jackson looked up, confused. "What are you talking about?" He was still processing the earlier frustration, but he wasn't prepared for this sudden outburst. Miranda's eyes were wide with hurt as she stepped closer, her voice rising. "You've got that new gaming console, and Tyler. He's been begging for it. You know how much he loves it, and you won't let him even play for 5 minutes. You're hoarding it like it's some trophy you've won." Jackson's heart sank at her words. He had always prided himself on his ability to work hard and earn the things he desired. The gaming console had been his reward for months of hard work, something he'd promised himself for all the late nights and weekends spent grinding through his job. But hearing Miranda's accusation was like a slap in the face. He didn't see the console as a symbol of selfishness, to him, it was a well-deserved break from the pressures of life. He had no idea that it had become such an emotional trigger for Miranda. "Miranda, I'm not hoarding it. It's just for me to unwind," Jackson explained, trying to keep his voice steady. "Unwind?" Miranda scoffed. "While Tyler sits there, heartbroken because you won't share it with him? That's not just unwinding, that's selfish. You're more interested in your own little victory than in sharing the happiness with anyone else." She threw her hands up in the air, her frustration bubbling over. "He's a kid, Jackson. He doesn't understand why you're acting like this. You're an adult, you're supposed to be setting an example." Jackson felt a pang of guilt but also confusion. How had something so simple become such an issue? He had thought that getting the console was a way to treat himself after weeks of intense work. The thought that he had somehow wronged Tyler, or worse, that he was setting a bad example, caught him off guard. He had been trying to show Tyler how hard work pays off. It was meant to be a lesson, not a point of contention. "I don't get it," Jackson said, his voice quiet but laden with hurt. "I work hard for the things I get. I didn't just ask for this, I earned it. I thought you'd be happy for me. For once, I'm not asking for anything from anyone." Miranda shook her head, her expression a mixture of disbelief and growing anger. "You don't get it, do you? Tyler doesn't care about how hard you worked. He's a kid. What matters to him is that you're being selfish and not sharing. He's upset. He's crying over something you can't even see because all you care about is your reward. Her voice broke at the last part, a sob threatening to escape. Jackson sat up straighter, trying to process the emotional charge in her words. The weight of what she was saying started to land on him, but the hurt in his chest was undeniable. "I didn't mean to hurt him," he muttered, almost to himself. "I thought it would be something I could enjoy, but I didn't realize it was tearing anyone apart." Miranda stood over him, her posture tense. She had been holding her emotions in check for so long that now it all spilled out. "It's not just about the console, Jackson. It's about the fact that you don't see the bigger picture. It's about community and compassion. You've turned it into a thing, an object. You've ignored the people who love you, the people who want to share in the joy with you. All that matters to you is what you've earned." Jackson's jaw clenched. "So what, I'm supposed to just give it up? Let him have it? Just like that? Why can't I enjoy something for myself? Because that's not how it works." Miranda's voice was rising, louder now, and her words were slicing through the air. "You can't just take and never give. What about the joy that comes from sharing? You're acting like this console is your personal prize, like you're the only one who matters." Her words hit him like a ton of bricks. He had been so wrapped up in his own feelings of accomplishment that he hadn't even considered the emotional impact his actions had on the people around him. But as Miranda's voice grew more frantic, Jackson's internal conflict intensified. The more she accused him of being selfish, the more he started to question everything. Was it really selfish to want something just for himself? Did it make him a bad person? "I thought I was doing the right thing," Jackson whispered, almost to himself. "I thought I was setting an example, showing Tyler that working hard gets you rewards." Miranda's eyes softened for a brief moment, but the emotion was still there. "There's more to life than just rewards, Jackson. Sometimes the best thing you can do is share with the people who care about you. That's what family does. That's what love is. It's not about what you can keep for yourself." Jackson looked up at her, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. It felt like a punch to the gut. He hadn't seen things from this perspective before. But in the midst of the confusion and hurt, a nagging feeling remained. What Miranda was asking of him seemed so small, yet it felt like it would cost him something. His victory, his hard-earned prize, was it really so wrong to want something just for himself? "Maybe I've been wrong," Jackson said, looking down at the floor, his voice barely audible. Miranda was still standing, watching him carefully, her breath shallow from the intensity of the exchange. "Maybe. But I don't think you realize just how much this is hurting Tyler. He looks up to you, Jackson. And right now, you're breaking his heart." Jackson was silent for a long moment, the weight of her words settling in. He could see it now, the deep hurt in Tyler's eyes when he refused to share, the way his son had tried to ask for something that had been promised but was never given. The guilt surged, and suddenly the console didn't feel like a victory at all, it felt like a point of division, a symbol of his failure. As the silence grew thicker between them, Jackson's mind swirled with confusion and regret. Was it really worth it? Was his hard-earned victory worth the pain he had caused? Miranda's hands trembled as she dialed 911, her mind racing with a mixture of panic and desperation. The phone felt like a lifeline, but it also felt like a betrayal. She had never imagined her emotions would drive her to this point, but as she held the phone to her ear, all she could hear was the rapid beat of her own heart. The phone rang, the seconds dragging on, each one feeling like an eternity. The operator finally picked up, her voice calm and professional. 911, what's your emergency? Miranda's voice was shaky as she spoke, almost pleading. I need help. I'm at home, and my husband, he's not listening to me. He's hoarding something, and it's causing so much emotional distress. He has this gaming console, and my son Tyler, he's devastated. He won't even let him play with it for a minute. It's tearing our family apart. The operator's tone was steady, attempting to understand. Ma'am, I need you to remain calm. I understand there is a disagreement regarding a gaming console, but I need you to clarify, what exactly is the situation? Are there any threats of violence? Miranda felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She was exaggerating, she knew it, but the words came tumbling out anyway. No, no violence, but he's being so selfish. Tyler is crying. I can't handle it anymore. He won't share. He's just sitting there, hoarding this thing like it's the only thing that matters. He's not even thinking about the damage he's causing. Please, I need someone to help. The operator remained calm. Ma'am, I need you to stay on the line while we assess the situation. Is there anyone else at the scene besides yourself and your husband? Miranda's voice shook as she spoke. Yes, my son, Tyler. He's so upset. He's been asking, begging, and it's just not right. He should be allowed to play. Jackson is making this all about himself. The operator's voice softened, but she stayed neutral. I understand you are upset, but you need to remember that this is a family matter, not necessarily an emergency. I'll need to get more details before determining if emergency intervention is required. Can you give me more information about the situation? Miranda felt like she was losing control, and the urgency in her voice intensified. This is an emergency. My son is heartbroken. He doesn't understand why his dad is acting like this. This isn't just about the console, it's about his father, about the way he's treating him. It's causing real emotional distress. I can't let this happen anymore. The operator remained professional, her voice steady, though there was an underlying tension as she tried to de-escalate the situation. Ma'am, I understand you're upset. It's clear there is a family dispute over the gaming console, but unless there's an immediate threat to anyone's safety, this is not something that requires emergency services. Miranda's breath quickened as she felt the weight of her actions. She had never expected things to get to this point. Her emotions had been clouding her judgment, and in her desperation to resolve the situation, she had turned to 911. As the operator continued to ask questions, Miranda felt like she was caught in a spiral of frustration and guilt. She had called for help, but in her heart, she knew it wasn't a real emergency, it was her own overwhelming feelings, her need to control the situation, that had pushed her to this moment. The operator finally spoke, her voice firm but compassionate. Ma'am, I'm sending a unit to your location. However, I urge you to consider that this may be better handled as a family matter, not an emergency response. It's important that you try to stay calm and allow your husband and son to work through this. Miranda clenched her fist around the phone, her body trembling with emotion. She couldn't stand the thought of her son being hurt by Jackson's actions. But as the operator's words sank in, Miranda realized just how much her perspective had been distorted by her emotions. She had turned the situation into something bigger than it was, making it seem like a crisis when, in reality, it was a disagreement, a painful, frustrating disagreement, but not one that required police intervention. As she hung up, a wave of regret washed over her. What had she done? She had exaggerated the situation, made it seem like an emergency when, in fact, all she wanted was Jackson to understand. To see that Tyler needed him, that their family needed him. But the damage had already been done. She had called the police, and now, the consequences of her actions were out of her hands. The room felt suffocating, and as she sat down on the couch, her mind raced. She had no idea how Jackson would react, how things would unfold from here. She had never wanted it to go this far, but now there was no turning back. And in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered, was this really what she wanted? Was calling 911 the best way to fix this, or had she just made things worse? The sound of sirens approaching shattered the silence in the house. Miranda's heart raced, her mind still reeling from the emergency call she had made moments before. She could hear the faint hum of the sirens growing louder, their urgency echoing in her ears. A part of her wanted to run, to stop everything from spiraling further, but the reality was sinking in, she had asked for this. She had called for help, and now the situation was out of her control. A knock at the door cut through her thoughts, sharp and authoritative. Miranda stood up, her legs shaky, and moved to open it. As she pulled the door wide, two police officers stood on the other side, calm, composed, yet clearly aware of the tension in the air. One officer, a tall man with a no-nonsense demeanor, stepped forward and introduced himself. "We're Officer Daniels, and this is Officer Thomas," he said, his voice firm but respectful. "We've received a call about a domestic disturbance. Can you please explain what's going on?" Miranda's mouth went dry. The weight of the moment hit her all at once, and for the first time, she realized how out of place it all felt. Her emotions had pushed her to this extreme, but now, standing before the officers, she felt the ridiculousness of involving them in something so personal. "This is a family issue," Miranda began, her voice shaky. "It's not a real emergency, but I need someone to help. My husband and I had an argument. It's about our son and this gaming console he won't let him play with." Her words felt awkward, out of place, as though she was explaining something trivial. "Tyler's upset, and Jackson, he just doesn't understand." Officer Daniels looked at her with understanding but remained impartial. "I see. We'll need to talk to both parties involved to get a clearer picture of the situation. Is your husband here?" Miranda nodded, her chest tight. "Yes, he's inside. But please, try to understand, this isn't about the console. It's about how Tyler's feeling. He's heartbroken, and Jackson's just ignoring it." The officers exchanged a glance before entering the house. Jackson was sitting on the couch, his arms crossed, his face etched with confusion. He looked up as they entered, his eyes flicking between Miranda and the officers. "We're here to mediate," Officer Daniels said, his tone neutral. "We understand there's been a disagreement over a gaming console. Can you explain your side of the story?" Jackson stood up slowly, his gaze still fixed on Miranda. "I don't know what she's talking about," he said, his voice steady but laced with frustration. "I just bought this console for myself. I work hard for the things I get. I don't see why I'm being accused of anything. I'm not stopping anyone from doing anything." Miranda's frustration flared again, but she bit her lip, trying to stay calm in front of the officers. "You're not seeing it, Jackson. Tyler's hurt. He looks up to you, and you're just ignoring him." Officer Thomas, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "It sounds like there's a lot of emotion here, but this is a civil matter. There's no violence, no immediate threat. What we recommend is for you both to sit down, have a calm conversation, and try to work through it together. This isn't something we can resolve with force or authority." Jackson looked at the officers, then at Miranda, his face a mix of disbelief and hurt. "I don't get it," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought it would be a good example for Tyler, showing him that working hard pays off." The officers listened carefully, nodding. "We understand," Officer Daniels said, his voice gentle. "But it's clear there's a disconnect here. Sometimes, showing affection and sharing things with loved ones is just as important as any lesson about hard work. We're not here to take sides, but we want you both to realize that communication is key." Miranda nodded, her emotions now feeling more like an avalanche, uncontrollable. "I just want him to understand," she said quietly. "Tyler needs his father. He needs to see that he's important, too." The officers exchanged a final look before turning to leave. "We'll leave you to resolve this. Just remember, if things escalate again, don't hesitate to reach out. But it's important that you handle this calmly." As the officers left, the room fell into a heavy silence. Miranda felt a strange mix of relief and shame. The police had listened, but they hadn't taken sides. Now, the responsibility of fixing things lay with her and Jackson alone. Miranda had hoped that the arrival of the officers would finally bring some resolution, some clarity to the situation, but as soon as the police left, the weight of the unresolved tension settled back into the room. It was palpable, thick with unspoken words and unresolved hurt. Jackson and Miranda sat across from each other, the gap between them widening with every passing moment. Minutes passed. The silence felt like it could stretch forever. Miranda's mind raced. She had been so sure that Jackson would understand. The police had given their neutral advice, but nothing had changed. Jackson still sat there, distant, not fully grasping the emotional storm that had been brewing inside her. Her frustration burned. How could he not see? How could he not understand what this was doing to Tyler? She couldn't bear it any longer. The silence was unbearable. "Jackson, you still don't get it," Miranda said, her voice low but intense. Her patience was wearing thin, her emotions seeping through. "This isn't just about the console. It's about you and me, and the way you're treating Tyler. He's your son. You're ignoring him. You don't see the damage you're doing." Jackson blinked, taken aback by the force of her words. He had been sitting there, trying to process everything that had happened, but now Miranda's frustration seemed to hit him like a wave. He opened his mouth to respond, but she wasn't finished. "No," she interrupted, her voice rising with the weight of her emotions. "You have to understand that he feels rejected. He sees you playing with this thing, and he wants to be a part of it. And instead of sharing it, you're keeping it all to yourself like it's some treasure, something you earned and deserve. What about him, Jackson? What about Tyler?" Jackson's eyes widened. "I didn't mean to hurt him. I didn't think it was that big of a deal." His words faltered, as if he was trying to piece together the emotions that were suddenly swirling around him. He had been so sure of his intentions, he just wanted to enjoy something for himself. But now, hearing Miranda's voice break with each word, he realized that something much deeper was at stake. Miranda's eyes softened for a moment, but the anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface. "Of course you didn't mean to hurt him. But that's the problem, isn't it? You didn't think. You didn't take a moment to consider how much it would hurt him. You've been so wrapped up in your own sense of achievement that you can't even see your own son's pain." Jackson opened his mouth again, but no words came out. He felt trapped between his desire to defend himself and the overwhelming realization that Miranda was right. Tyler was hurting. He had seen it in his son's eyes, that deep disappointment when he refused to share the console. But he hadn't known how to navigate that. He had been so proud of his hard work and his ability to buy something he wanted. It had never occurred to him that his pride might be driving a wedge between him and the people he loved. "Why don't you just give him the console?" Miranda's voice was quieter now, almost pleading. "Why can't you just see that sometimes it's not about what you earned or how hard you worked? It's about showing your son that he's important, too. That he matters just as much." Jackson's chest tightened. The words felt like a weight pressing down on him, each one carving deeper into his heart. He wanted to respond, to defend his right to keep the console, but it was impossible now. Miranda had laid bare the one thing he had been avoiding, the emotional truth that had been lingering, just beneath the surface. I didn't realize it was that bad," Jackson said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I just thought I was doing something for myself. I thought I deserved it after everything I've been through. But I see now. I see that I've hurt him. I've hurt both of you." Miranda exhaled sharply, her body sagging in relief. The anger that had clouded her mind for so long seemed to dissipate, replaced by a raw sense of vulnerability. "You didn't just hurt him. You hurt me too. All I've wanted is for us to be a family, to be together. But you're shutting us out. And it's breaking my heart, Jackson." There was a long pause, and in that silence, Jackson finally understood the depth of the situation. He had been so focused on his personal achievements that he hadn't realized how much he was isolating himself from the people who mattered most. The console, the symbol of his hard-earned victory, had become a barrier, a wall he had unknowingly built between him and his family. I'm sorry, Jackson said, his voice raw with emotion. I was so focused on myself, I didn't see how much it was hurting you and Tyler. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I see now that I've been wrong. I'll give him the console. I'll make it right. Miranda nodded, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and sorrow. I just want us to be a family again, Jackson. I want Tyler to know he's important, that you love him. Jackson took a deep breath, the weight of the moment sinking in. It wasn't just about the console anymore. It was about the fragile threads that connected them all, threads that had been strained but not completely broken. If he wanted to fix things, he had to start by listening, by putting aside his pride and showing his son that he mattered. As the silence stretched between them once more, Jackson knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But for the first time in a long while, he felt like he was ready to make things right. The console, once a symbol of his personal victory, would now be something else, a gesture of love, of sharing, of rebuilding what had been lost. Jackson's attempt at reconciliation was short-lived. The air in the house was thick with unspoken tension, but as he tried to process everything, there was a knock at the door. It wasn't the kind of knock that suggested a casual visit, this one was more urgent, more forceful. Jackson's stomach churned as he exchanged a glance with Miranda. The door opened before either of them could speak. Standing in the doorway was Miranda, her face flushed with anger, but this time it was different. Behind her was Tyler, looking confused and upset, a stark contrast to the explosive energy emanating from his mother. "What are you doing here?" Jackson asked, his voice laced with frustration and confusion. "We just had a conversation. I said I'd fix things." Miranda stepped forward, her eyes wild with emotion. "No, you don't get it, Jackson," she spat, her voice shaking. "You think you can just waltz in and fix everything, but you're not listening. I've had enough of your excuses." Jackson's heart began to pound. He didn't know what to say, how to diffuse the tension that was building between them. He had thought they were on the path to resolution, but now, with Miranda's eyes burning with anger, he felt like he was back at square one. "Miranda, what's going on?" he asked, trying to stay calm, but his voice wavered with the pressure of the situation. "You're still not getting it." Miranda screamed. "I've had enough of you taking everything for granted. You don't see how much I've been carrying, how much we've all been carrying. You think a stupid gaming console is going to make up for all the times you've ignored us, all the times you've put yourself first." Jackson's mind was spinning. He had no idea what she was talking about, no idea how to respond. "Miranda, please, I'm trying to, no." Miranda interrupted, her voice rising. "You're not trying. You've never tried. And now, I've had enough. I'm done." Without warning, she pulled out a can of pepper spray from her purse and aimed it at Jackson, her hand trembling with fury. The sudden shift in her behavior shocked him. "Don't come any closer, Jackson," she hissed, her voice sharp with desperation. "You've pushed me too far." Jackson froze. His eyes widened as the realization hit him, Miranda was threatening him. The woman he loved, the mother of his son, was standing there with a weapon aimed at him. He didn't know what to do. His mind was clouded with disbelief, fear, and regret. "Miranda, stop," he said, his voice low but firm. "This isn't the way to fix anything." But Miranda's eyes were wild, her breath coming in sharp, jagged gasps. "You don't understand," she muttered. "You never understood, and now you're going to see how it feels when you take everything away from me." Her hand shook, but the pepper spray remained aimed at him. Jackson's heart raced as he backed away slowly, hoping to de-escalate the situation. But as he moved, Miranda's finger twitched, and the spray hissed out, releasing a cloud of mist. Before Jackson could react, the door swung open again, and the officers reappeared. Their eyes went wide as they assessed the situation. "Step away from him," Officer Daniels shouted, his voice commanding. Miranda hesitated, her face contorted with anger and fear. But the officers were quick. They moved in, restraining her as she tried to lunge forward, the pepper spray slipping from her grip. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for assault," Officer Thomas said firmly, his voice unwavering. "Put your hands behind your back." Miranda's struggles grew frantic, but the officers had her under control. Jackson stood there, stunned, unable to believe what had just transpired. His mind raced, the pain of the situation overwhelming. How had it come to this? As Miranda was led out of the house, her eyes met his one last time. There was no anger left in them, just the raw pain of everything that had gone wrong. Jackson's chest tightened as he realized the true cost of the conflict, the emotional destruction that had been left in its wake. The door slammed shut behind her, and Jackson stood alone, Tyler still standing in the doorway, his face a mixture of confusion and fear. "Dad?" Tyler's voice was small, tentative. Jackson looked at his son, his heart breaking. He had failed to protect the people he loved, and now, he wasn't sure how to fix it. The story delves into the shock and confusion that ripple through the scene, particularly as Tyler watches his mother's actions with wide, bewildered eyes. Every detail, from the officer's measured approach to the precise moment when the taser is deployed, is recounted with an emphasis on the gravity of the incident. The narrative explores the emotional toll on Jackson as he stands by, feeling helpless and overwhelmed by the rapid escalation of events. Miranda's behavior, now marked by erratic movements and uncontrolled anger, forces the authorities to take drastic measures. The text paints a vivid picture of the final confrontation, highlighting the tension in the air and the heavy silence that follows the taser's crackle. In these tense moments, the reader is invited to reflect on the tragic interplay between personal grievances and the loss of control, as well as the lasting impact these moments have on everyone involved. The narrative does not shy away from exploring the moral and ethical dilemmas that arise when a situation spirals out of control, leaving both the characters and the audience to grapple with the consequences of actions taken in a moment of desperation. After the chaotic confrontation and the departure of the authorities, Jackson found himself alone in his now quiet living room. Though the events of the day had left him emotionally and mentally drained, a lingering sense of empathy compelled him to look beyond the conflict. Despite the turmoil that had ensued over his prized gaming console, Jackson couldn't entirely disregard the child who had been caught in the crossfire. With a deep sigh, he approached Tyler, who still lingered at the doorway, his expression a mix of confusion and sadness. Jackson, moved by a sudden surge of compassion, decided that perhaps it was possible to bridge the gap between the fractured emotions of the day. He invited Tyler to sit down beside him on the couch, offering a gentle smile that contrasted with the harsh events that had just unfolded. For a brief moment, he allowed Tyler the simple pleasure of playing a game on the console, a gesture that symbolized a willingness to share joy even in the midst of discord. In that quiet interlude, as Tyler's laughter echoed softly through the room, Jackson found solace in the understanding that sometimes, small acts of kindness could mend even the deepest wounds. While Jackson remained resolute about his decision not to permanently relinquish the gaming console, he understood that the day's events had taught him the importance of empathy and the complexities of human relationships. The brief, shared moments of joy became a testament to the power of compassion in healing conflicts, leaving Jackson with a renewed sense of purpose and balance. In the aftermath of an extraordinary and tumultuous day, Jackson sat quietly in his living room, reflecting on the bizarre series of events that had upended his life. As he replayed every moment in his mind, from the triumphant unboxing of his cherished gaming console to the heated altercation that ended with Miranda's arrest, he began to piece together a deeper understanding of what had transpired. The day had been a roller coaster of emotions, excitement, conflict, fear, and ultimately, a sober confrontation with the realities of entitlement and responsibility. Jackson's reflections turned inward as he considered the broader implications of the confrontation. He pondered the nature of personal achievement, the fine line between pride and selfishness, and the unexpected responsibilities that came with success. The events had forced him to recognize that true fulfillment sometimes required sacrifices and, at times, sharing the fruits of one's labor. His thoughts shifted to the role of Miranda, whose own struggles had led her to take drastic measures in the name of protecting her son's happiness. In a strange way, the conflict had revealed a profound truth, that every individual is driven by their own fears, desires, and hopes, even if those impulses manifest in destructive ways. While Jackson felt relief that the day's chaos was over, he could not ignore the lessons it had imparted. He resolved to remain steadfast in his convictions while also embracing a more empathetic approach toward those who might be driven by desperation. As he powered down the gaming console for the night, Jackson's mind was filled with thoughts about the balance between personal joy and the collective need for understanding and compassion. In that quiet, reflective moment, Jackson realized that life was a tapestry of contradictions, where moments of victory were interwoven with instances of conflict and sorrow. The events of the day had taught him that every victory comes with responsibility, and that sometimes the hardest battles are fought not on a digital battlefield, but within the realm of human emotion and empathy. With this newfound wisdom, Jackson drifted off to sleep, hopeful that tomorrow would bring a better understanding of himself and the unpredictable world around him.